All right, hey everyone. I realize I don't think I put this on Twitter, so it's probably just on Lara streamers or those that have subscribed and get notifications for my live streams. So yeah, sorry about that. If you normally pick this up from Twitter and you missed it, I will be better about that next week. So to the point, let's get into more of creating the CLI tasks or porting over the CLI tasks from the workbench. If you saw kind of part one of this stream, you know that basically I made the decision to just literally copy the code and put it into this new project, the Shift CLI project. This project's actually ready to go. It does work. It doesn't have any documentation or anything like that, and it doesn't have a lot of tasks, but it is functional. So I think the only thing that's really preventing me from, announcing it more and talking about it more on Twitter is really mostly the documentation, but also the fact that more of these tasks need to be part of that. So as you can see, I'm just kind of checking these boxes. But while I was waiting to start the stream, I was kind of reviewing these, maybe which ones I wanted to work on today during the stream. And I kind of made a decision. I really want this CLI tool to be more focused about refactoring. I don't want it to do upgradey type things. And by upgradey type things, I would mean things that are normally part of a shift. Two reasons. One, I think it gives a little more focus, and I think my ultimate vision for the CLI tool is something more like an IDE helper, not necessarily built into the IDE, but I'm thinking like PHP Storm when I do, option enter or alt enter or whatever. I'm able to, perform some kind of refactor, some quick things, and I could really see this CLI tool eventually being something on the command line that you point it to a file, a new controller that you made maybe, and you wrote all the code for, and you kind of spiked that out, and now you want to generate the test, right? I think that would be a lot cooler. Or, hey, I've got this project, and yeah, it's running the latest version of Laravel, but there's like a lot of these little things, like I never did anonymous migrations or something, or, a contractor worked on the project and they didn't use anonymous migrations. So, those types of refactors, not necessarily like, hey, convert the dates property to casts, right? That's required in Laravel 10, which brings me to my second point. The CLI tool, much like all of my packages, are always going to be the latest version of Laravel. They will not have backwards compatibility, even if that is a quote-unquote still supported Laravel version. Much like Laravel 9 right now, it's not actively being developed. Yes, it receives security updates and bug fixes for a couple more months, but Laravel 10 is the latest, greatest active version being worked on, developed by the community, by the team. And so for those reasons, it just makes sense for Shift as this upgrade, latest kind of tool to follow suit and just really focus on, developing for the latest projects. So I've kind of crossed out, all that is to really explain that I crossed out a few of these things while I was waiting to start the stream. So although the premium tasks already kind of have that focus, again, by design, but I kind of allowed a lot of free tasks to be these kind of one-off things that I just let come over from the upgrade and to kind of help the community. And I just don't want this CLI tool to take on that feel. Again, I really want it to be more about modernizing the code via refactoring, not necessarily modernizing the code because it's required for the upgrade. A little distinction there. Okay, with all of that said, I'm just going to work top down here and kind of see how far I get. Hopefully I can get, 2 or 3 of these things done, maybe 4. Maybe we'll get down here. And again, once the free tasks are all done, I will probably start talking about, a beta release of this. So, okay, cool. All right. Hey, Samuel, Bernard, Adrian, thanks for joining. Again, sorry I didn't post on Twitter, but you guys are regulars, so you're aware of the weekly stream. Okay, so again, let's work top down. I've got a little extra time today. Emma's at grandma's, so again, I'll go for 45 minutes, maybe an hour. We'll see. Okay, use faker method. So again, I'm in the Shift code base now. And this is kind of this task factory where I give it the name that you see from the workbench or so forth, and that gets translated into a class object. So if we go in here to faker, there it is, already searched for it. Let's kind of take a peek at this. So pretty straightforward. Again, while I'm copying the code, Shift has kind of its own finder that limits it based on a particular thing. So of course we're going to look for faker, and then it kind of maps all the properties and makes sure that those get converted to methods. This is something that faker deprecated a couple versions ago, a couple minor versions ago, and I think it's going to be obviously removed at some point. So maybe like faker 2.0 makes you use the methods. So again, this is a bit of a refactor of your code to use these other methods. You could argue it is kind of upgradey, but I didn't cross it out yet. So you know what? Let's just bring it over. It's pretty lightweight. So let's go over to the Shift CLI, and first things first, we're going to go into that task manifest, and we're basically going to say. I kind of like this verb noun thing, so I'm trying to think like methodize faker. I don't know what the name of that is. Again, I want these to be simple to type. I think the easy thing would be like faker methods. But yeah, anyways, faker methods. I'll see if I can make that like a verb later. But let's go ahead and make this. And we'll just kind of paste this in here for now, and let's make it more shifty. So I think this is app tasks. We don't have any of the Shift namespace stuff. And again, I think we talked about this last time. I think maybe Bernard, you brought it up. But yeah, it probably makes sense to start implementing some kind of task interface. I don't have that yet, but I think it's probably worth it. So let's say use, what was it, finds files? Yeah, okay. And then we have the files now, all PHP files. So what's a little bit annoying is, not annoying, but what's different between this code base and the Shift code base, and I think we're going to see this more today with these tasks, is that with Shift I can actually kind of limit the files I'm scanning. By kind of like a little bit of a pre-filter, right? If you don't even have like faker arrow anywhere in your code, like it's not gonna do anything. And as opposed to this, which is finds files, where I really just have this all PHP files. The problem I have with that is that I'm basically jumping straight ahead to this for each loop and getting all the file contents. And I think that's just a little bit annoying, or a little bit inefficient. Is annoying is not the right word, inefficient. You could argue it's local, so it's not a huge deal because it should be pretty fast on your machine to read these files. It's not like you're going across a network or through Docker file IO or anything like that. Or probably not anyway. But yeah, it's just a little bit. I'll come up with maybe a way eventually. Again, I'm not going to worry about it right now, but let's change this to file. Wow, no typing today. And I think we have this files. Yeah, okay. All right, so we're going to combine all of our str to lower on the properties. We brought these over, so these are all the properties that you could use inside of faker. Again, a nice thing to share, but no big deal that it's copy and pasted. People can just issue a PR. If I missed one. Okay, what else do we have here? So we're going to loop over the files. We don't do get file contents anymore, so we'll just do file get contents. Okay, so now we have the file. We have this dirty action. So we basically scan the file for a preg replace. Here's our replacement. And we count the dirty. And then we do an additional replacement. And then if it's dirty, think I'm going to change this ever so slightly and just say if not dirty, continue, otherwise file put contents. And the last thing I'm going to do actually is I will just short circuit this just a bit. Let's put that chunk of code together and let's just say something like if not str contains, the haystack would be contents, the needle would be faker arrow. So we're kind of recreating a little bit of that short circuit, but we're still reading in the file. And the reason I don't like that as opposed to kind of the search pre-filter is that, you know, if it's like a 2 or 3 meg file, if you just have this huge, you know, controller or whatever, huge Cedar file, right, or test, that's kind of slow when it doesn't have faker. So kind of sucks. But again, not the end of the world. Since I'm doing kind of this guard clause continue, I just kind of made this symmetric as well with a continue. So I think there's ways with Finder. You could do faker check in the loop and continue early, so it's more or less the same. Yeah, exactly. I think we just did the same thing that we're talking about. You can, but again, still a little bit inefficient with that. There are ways to use PHP's Finder, Symfony's Finder with a contains, so it does kind of pre-filter them, but it's still doing the same thing. It's still searching the file contents anyway. So whereas the Shift thing I built is actually using an underlying system command. But because this is going to be a local install, potentially on a Windows machine, those commands don't necessarily work because I no longer control the environment. All right, remaining modifiers. Okay, I think the issue now is let's make sure this stuff's typed. Okay, so perform void, that's right. What does this return? Probably void as well. Oh, remaining modifiers is an additional. Ooh, okay, great. So it's finding files again. Why would it do that again? Why wouldn't I just do all of this at once? We're not going to log the event anymore. Oh. Faker optional valid. Okay, okay. We kind of do need to note this. This is the first time this actually notes something. See, we're learning some cool stuff here. Okay, I'm gonna throw a to-do on this, and I'm not gonna convert the Shift stuff just because. How to leave a comment in the CLI, or more like need to leave a comment in the CLI. That's the first thing that's there. All right, the rest of this returns an array, and this is void. Okay, so that takes care of the PHP storm unhappiness. Okay. Faker methods registers, we have it to do. It would fail because I left these invalid references, so that's good. Probably need to like bring these up here somehow and kind of hack that dirty bit to say, oh, hey, you had some of this stuff, so track those things. Okay, good to know. Let's keep moving down the line. What's next? Global facades. I think the global facades should be pretty straightforward. It's really just let's get rid of this faker method. Global facades, there it is. Yeah, this is pretty straightforward as well. Just a huge search and replace. All right, let's go back to our CLI. Let's do global facades. So we'll say app tasks global facades. My noun, verb noun is going out the window. Gonna have to think on that. All right, let's bring this in here, and same thing, more of the same. We'll get rid of this. This goes app tasks. We don't differentiate with Laravel because everything's Laravel. We don't extend task. And this is global facades. It's really facade aliases is what. Let's take the opportunity to kind of fix this. Let's say facade aliases. All right, and this is like facade aliases. All right, let's get in here. All right, what this does, we're not going to commit. We're not going to do any configuration stuff. Okay, and then we've got this broken up actually this time. Nice. So let's just say void. Okay, so here again we find files using that kind of sucks again because we're not able to do that. Okay, so we're going to remove this. And we're going to kind of do the same thing as before. We'll say file, or well, this is this, files, and then we'll change this to file. And we have to get the contents. I guess I did that all on one line. Ooh, interesting. Okay, let's break this up then. So we'll say, let's change this to contents, and we'll change count, count, go back to that, or well, I guess we'll leave count. It's a little bit more like dirty, I think we called it in the last one. Let's be consistent. Dirty is kind of, yeah, so if not dirty, continue, and let's turn this into put file contents, or file put. Gosh, I always write that backwards. File, been writing PHP for like 20 years and I still get that backwards. In fact, if you saw in the Shift facade that I use in the Shift code base, I changed it. Get file contents and put file contents. Annoying. Okay. Okay, so we need contents. So we'll say contents equals file get contents of file. Okay, we have dirty. We're going to change it up. All right, and then what's the difference? The difference here. Replace, what is the difference here? Oh, it finds, I see. It replaces the use statements, and then it also replaces references within the code. I'm not exactly sure why I do that in two different spots. It's kind of interesting. Count replacements, this is interesting. Oh, it adds, I see. It adds an import when you do it globally like that. This is a little bit tricky. I'd like to combine this all into one is kind of why I'm hesitating here. I'd like to put this, again, to maximize the efficiency. Instead of doing all these like replace helper and replace core facades, it'd be really nice to just kind of loop over all PHP files and see what's in there. So I think what I'm going to do is actually cut this and do something a little more like this. Let's take this, and now we'll say something more like this. So we'll say replace. So let's get the contents. All right, first things first. Let's bring in use finds files. All right. And then we're going to say, all right, get the contents. We'll pass, whoa, hello. We'll pass in the contents. And here we'll need to return contents. And let's break this up. So we'll replace, I think, let's get this a little more linear. Let's say this replace alias imports is kind of this first thing we're doing. Then we're replacing alias references. And then what's this final thing we're doing? All right, so this alias imports. All right, so that's this one. And we kind of no longer care about this dirty stuff, so let's just get rid of that. That's just kind of an optimization. We can do that in a different way. So let's close this out, close that out, make this a string void. Oh, no, sorry, string. Guess we could have passed it by reference, but that's okay. All right, so this core facades, we'll clean that up later. So now core facades really is replace alias references. All right, that's this part. So we'll get rid of the paths and we'll kind of jump right into the replacements. Let's see, how can this work? We have string contents, string. All right, so contents is this replace references. On path, it's really contents. So we'll probably collapse that. If count replacements, we don't need to do that anymore. We're kind of trying to see, like, do you already have the import or not? And if you don't, then it gets added. So that's kind of going to be like a to-do. So I think let's return that. I guess it gets used in multiple spots. So we'll keep that private method. So we'll just return the lower portion of that. And I guess replacements gets appended to inside of that method. Let's go find it. So this returns a string. We got rid of replace references. It just kind of returns what we said, and we're no longer capturing the references. So that would mean this could look more like that, which means I can turn this into an arrow function. Cool. And now it's a little more straightforward. In fact, I don't even need preg replace callback. I could just use the references directly. So we could say, oh, does PHP-Storm do that? No. Okay. So instead, we could say $1, $2, ::. There we go. Awesome. All right, one last one. This one's a little deeper than I thought it was going to be. Replace core facades. That's not necessary anymore, is it? What am I missing? Replace helper classes. There we go. Replace helper classes. Helper, let's say helper references. All right, let's go down here to this. This returns a string. It also gets the string of contents. We no longer check for that. We no longer for each. We no longer do the count. We no longer put the file contents. This happens all in one. So now we can say contents is the replacement of contents. Let's get that fixed. And then again, we no longer do the search. We would just also do a replace references of contents with the helper class. All right. And then here we return contents. Okay, The tricky part, I think, here is twofold. One, the efficiency, you know, got to let that go. And then two is the import. Sorry, the import. Does it have the correct import? Now here's the problem. Here's what I was tracking all those references for in the Shift code base. I don't know at this point what's been replaced. And so I don't know which import to even check for. The code for that's a little bit crazy. Let me just kind of fake this here for a second. We could say like use str, right? Now this works because str is registered in your config app underneath aliases. The problem with this is that not many IDEs pick this up, right? And so what this facade aliases does is, while this is valid code from a Laravel perspective, it just kind of cleans it up a little bit by saying like illuminate support str, right? That's what the references would do, the imports, the alias imports block. It would fix that for us, no problem. The issue is if you don't have the import, you could, in your code, say something down here like str, you know, lower, right? And this is a global reference, and it works because Laravel registers those aliases in the global namespace. But as you can see, PHP Storm doesn't like this, despite being a Laravel 0 application and that str thing being registered, because it just doesn't know. Now you can have plugins and all sorts of things, but not everybody uses PHP Storm, VS Code, whatever. Some people, you know, may or may not have such a plugin. So it's just much nicer to get rid of that global alias, import the class with the appropriate thing, and you know, you're kind of on your way now, right? That's what this aims to do. Everything I just option entered, that's what this refactor is. So again, it's not necessarily an upgrade thing, it's a refactor, because this, all of the things I just demonstrated are valid ways to write code, and they would run, you know, for PHP. It doesn't generate any kind of error. So the issue that I was trying to point out there is that if I am using one of those global references, I don't know, I'm no longer tracking that, so I don't know which imports to check for. Obviously, I don't want to just add them all. That would be a little bit weird. So does it have the correct import? I don't know. I just kind of cleaned up your code, but now I left it in a broken state because I potentially didn't add the import. So when it's replacing these references, it is going to need to kind of track those in some way and determine if the reference got replaced, and as such, potentially add the import to contents. So that's a lot of Shift code though. So I think what I'm going to do is go down to replace references, and I probably just want to do this here. When it's replacing that reference in a global capacity, it's kind of replace global reference is what this is talking about, that / bit, right? That it would see if that import exists. So yeah, that's kind of what needs to happen here. So I probably need to kind of revert that code. Again, I'm not gonna, I feel like I've already messed with this for kind of a long time, so I'm not gonna tinker with that just yet. Let's go for breadth in this stream instead of depth. So I'm gonna do one more. Let's go on down to this model table name, because I was taking a peek at it earlier, and I think it's another good example of some code that's going to need to come over to the Shift CLI, right? Not all of these are just going to be straightforward copy paste. So let's kind of take a look at this model table name. I'm just going to copy it, and we'll go through it a little quicker in the Shift code base. So let's go to the, oops, that was the Shift code base again. Let's go to the Shift CLI, task manifest. We'll say model table name, or model table property, I don't know, model table name. create that, drop it into place, get rid of all that stuff, change this to app tasks, and we'll say model table name. Oh, I'm hearing some chat. What's going on in the chat? Just iterate once over all files. I'm not sure I totally follow. I think I know what you're following over. I think maybe you're saying, like, does it make sense to just iterate over every file and perform all tasks at once? Yeah, that would be cool. What I would worry about there is, like, that's a lot to track the contents on. But yeah, I mean, it could work. Be a cool, you know, it's like a cool V2 refactor, right? If people do complain about the performance. The reality of the situation is that, yeah, that's cool, but it's, all these things are premature optimizations, right? And we know premature optimizations, root of all evil, blah, 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 blah. I'm not worried about it right now. Honestly, like, Shift does this. It doesn't pipe and filter the way you're talking about, like Shift itself. And I mean, people's shifts run in like 17 seconds on thousands and thousands of files. So again, running locally, file IO should be like so fast. I mean, think of like Pint and all those things, right? I mean, they're touching and interpreting actually abstract syntax tree every file. So not only are they reading the file, but then they're loading up a huge array of all the tokens inside there. And you know, Pint runs in seconds. So again, this isn't doing anything different than refactoring tools are already doing on your machine. So it's not worth the effort to build kind of that pipeline just yet. Totally cool to add later, but again, not a big deal right now. Okay, so here's what's actually really cool about this task, and kind of why I wanted to get to this one last one, because again, I'm copying these over, but I'm willing to accept the fact that there are some things that Shift kind of already has built. But this is actually a good example where the Shift CLI has things that are already built, and again, doesn't, because of the way in which it's ran locally, it doesn't need all this extra stuff that Shift has to use, right? So here's a good example. Let me explain this real quick, and then we'll just kind of kill this code. What's happening here for this particular Shift is you have to realize that Shift runs in a static state. It doesn't have not every Shift has all your dependencies. It doesn't have like your database. It doesn't have your app running, right? It just has like your checked out code, and that's it. Very static. So most things can just analyze it in the static way like we've been talking about. But for some of these things to be really good, they kind of need to know more about your code. And a good way to know more about your code and stuff Laravel itself uses is reflection. So this table property name bit thing here, what this block of code does is it actually, when it checks out your project, it actually does run composer install, so the app is theoretically in a runnable place, or at least we can go deeper with static analysis. Or beyond static analysis, we can actually use reflection, which is like one step closer to actually running your code. That's what this does. It kind of looks up the code that it wants to scan, or the files it wants to scan. It copies a script into your application, and then it runs that script within your application so it can use reflection and take advantage of, you know, the auto loading and all this stuff in your project. I don't have to do any of that in the Shift CLI because you're already running it from your project. So awesome, right? So we can basically get rid of all of this, and we no longer have to kind of JSON decode the models. Instead, what we can do is we can really just say, hey, scan this thing, take a look at this file, and is it a model, right? Using reflection kind of directly. So we can kind of pack all this down. And I think this is, again, kind of a cool example where the Shift CLI is actually again, much better environment to be able to run Shift and gives me opportunity to do cool cooler things because I have direct access to the project in a runnable state, right? It's in your dev environment and theoretically set up to do things like talk to the database and analyze, models actually backed by, again, the local database. And I think because of that, it really makes it, makes some of these refactoring tasks more robust. And that's why I want to give it that focus, because I can really start to make a lot cooler tasks. So let me kind of go through this. I don't think I'll be able to port it over entirely on the stream, but let's kind of just go down through perform real quick. So what we're going to do here is same thing we've been doing. This files, and it's going to be as file, and we're going to have to kind of clean this up a bit. But now we can take that reflective code and put it directly in here. So really what we need to do, just kind of a to-do here, is basically, again, let's just go ahead and get the contents of that file. So we'll say file, get contents, file, and we can do some pre-filtering here to basically say if not str contains class, right, then what can we say? Or sorry, that's backwards. Haystack needle. Contents class, then we know we can just go ahead and continue because a model has to be class-based. Okay, now that we know it's class-based, we can use reflection. So we'll bring that code over here in a second. So now we can use reflection on file, right, to see if it's a model, right? And so now we can say like if not model, continue, and now we should be deep into the code. So path to class name. Wouldn't I be able to get the class name from reflection? Probably. I don't know. We have this model. We'll leave it alone. It's all here. Table name from class name. We have this attributes pivot. So that comes across, so we could say something like pivot or is pivot. We'll just make another helper method. This is pivot model. We'll pass it in the model. And let's just make this return a bool for false right now. So I'm just trying to make this bool, return false, tag that with a little to-do action. Let's just kind of get through this code. We're pretty close anyway. Okay, so model needs to come across. I'll pull that code over in just a minute. Let's keep kind of looking at this. Attributes table. We'll just call this table for now. So if table's not the conventional name, then we would continue some more guard clauses. We already have the contents, so we'll kind of leave that alone. Now we can preg replace all the stuff we talked about. Bring this over again as table. So this is just replacing the table name property, and then it potentially removes the doc block above it. I think we have a property finder. Do we have a property finder? Nope. Do we have like a class finder? I thought we made some finders before. Parsers, finders. We do have a class definition finder. And we do have properties. There we go. I think the thing to do would probably be to use the class definition here to properly remove the doc block. Somebody might have a different doc block above this. Yeah, see, that's kind of gross. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this comment. All right. Let's bring in str. Path to class name, we got a to-do. Okay, so now we're back to where we were. We'll say file, put contents, model. That would just be file. All right, and I think what we want to do here is to-do use class finder to remove property. There you go. It's pretty straightforward. Then we don't have to do all this regex crap. So we would just do some kind of like, I think contents would be like a substring replace. And we probably use this in some other spots, so let's go find that and just copy this code. Hello, come on PHP Storm, you can do it. There it is, debug calls, awesome. Let's take this contents, we'll just kind of borrow that. All right, so that needs to change here in a second, so does table name. Let's go get this, and then I'll probably clean up the rest of it off stream. So let's kind of see what this reflection looks like. So again, table name, we had this script, fixer model table name. Let's go look at this. So this is just a raw PHP script. Again, it gets loaded into your project. It registers itself with Composer or brings in Composer autoload, and as such can pull in like all of your class stuff. And it has, you know, class from path, which is kind of built in. We would need that. Okay, so anyway, what it does is it loops other files. We don't need to do that anymore. We're just going to now say class reflection class, and if it can't do anything, it's just going to continue. And then it tests on subclass of get default properties, is set property table name continue, otherwise it brings over the table name property, I guess with the value. I wonder if I can get like line information. Can you get line information from? I don't know if I need that stuff, to be honest. I kind of just need the model class to be returned. I don't really even need to mess with the table properties because I'm going to end up using the class finder anyway. All right, let's copy this code over and turn it into private methods on this new model table name bit here. So let's come down here and we'll just say private function. What is this like? Extract model, find model, parse model, is model. I don't know. We can just say model class, and we'll give it some contents. No, we can't give it contents. It needs to know the path. I think this just takes file. Yeah, this will return reflection class, I think. Yeah. Let's return optionally a reflection class. Okay, let's bring this to life. We're going to take this, turn that into a private function, class from path, string. Let's format all that. And then instead, this is going to return class. All right, let's get rid of some of this junk inside here. Okay, we don't need any of this. We don't need to loop over the files. We're simply going to try, and then we're going to return null if there's some kind of reflection issue. All right, so if there's any kind of reflection exception, then we couldn't parse you. We don't know if you're a model or not, whatever, no big deal. And then we can go ahead and do some pretty basic stuff. So if we know that you're not a subclass of model, then we return null, same thing. And then we don't really need to get, well, we do need to get the properties just in the event that if you don't have table, then we would return null. So instead of all these continues, and then finally we would just return the true class so we can do the things we want to do with it. So let's go back up to our to-do, and now we would say model equals this model class file, and it should know all the things it needs to know. So if is null, just to be a little more clear, if is null model, then continue. All right, great. And now it's kind of like path to class, path to class. We don't have path. This returns a string. It says it takes a path, base name path. I should be returning file here. Part of me feels like path to class name. Wouldn't you know the class name from the reflection bit? I think this is going to need some testing. I'm wondering if, oh, you do have like get methods, properties, start and inline. Yeah. Get namespace name. There you go. What's this? Get namespace name. Show me some. The reflection classes. Oh my gosh, they have like no. They have like no documentation. It's just, it says the same thing that the doc block says. I'm wondering if get namespace class would handle this part. That's what I'm wondering. I kind of want to like var dump this and see what happens. Oh, there we go. Okay, opened it like 15 times, I guess. Let's see what this says, and then I think we'll end here. All right, I have no idea where my internet or Chrome went, whatever. See you later, Chrome. All right. I'm assuming that get namespace name might potentially give me the path to class name. Now, of course, I have a method that, you know, kind of just, it looks like it just takes the path and gives me the class name. So really all I'm after is like class name. Whoops. So I think class name would definitely work. So I think we could just say like anywhere I'm using class name, we could just say model get name. Yeah, probably. Am I saying that anywhere else? Find class name. I'm not saying it anywhere else. So now this goes away as well. And then table. Table, we kind of do need, we kind of would need the table name property. Where else am I using this? All right, let's see here. So this would kind of be like model get properties, get property, table. I think I might be able to say something like that. What does this do? Reflection property, I guess it can return null or something. Yeah, it can throw a reflection exception, but we know that it already exists because we're testing for is set in our model class, right? So this needs to, I think this is the final thing that kind of needs to come across for this to somewhat work. And it looks like I deleted some code I probably didn't want to. So where is that? Let's just bring this all back to life. Yeah, there we go. We're really just testing this. We're saying return, is it a subclass of pivot? And if so, then get rid of that. There we go, and it's model. So, whoops, just a little helper here. All right, cool. So I think everything's brought over now. Again, I don't know if get property and get default property are gonna do two different things. I'd have to kind of, again, this needs to be tested, but, oh, what does this return? This returns string name, returns a reflection property. What do you have, reflection property? Pal, do you have like a value? Default value? Get default value, mixed. There we go. Should be a string, right? Is not equal to the conventional table name. There we go. So, if you are a model class and you have the table property, and your table property is not equal to what, you know, it should be, or what is the conventional name from Laravel, then go ahead and continue. Otherwise it is, and now we would want to go for removing this. Or get, oh, let's see if this has, does this somehow know like its place in the file? There we go, it does have a get.comment. Is default is static. Set value to string. Does this like extend something? Implements reflector. I was wondering if this like had something like get line or like line, but it doesn't seem to, unfortunately. What this would have, though, is its place in the code, and it would have the doc block potentially associated with that. So I think there's probably enough information here to like remove it with a regex where I wouldn't have to use it. But I think the regex is probably a bit cleaner. Yeah. So I think there's some things to do here with this. I think this works. We brought it over. We demonstrated that, you know, it's actually going to be pretty nice to be able to run this. I mean, it's a lot less code, really. But yeah, now it's a matter of like, what's the order of operations? Should I just, once we know that it's a class, should I just parse it with the class finder and see if it has the table property and then use reflection? Like, which one's the heavier operation, right? So there are some little micro optimizations I could do at this level, again, just for that speed boost, but I'm not sure. I think the best thing to do would be to write a test for this with a fixture so I could kind of see it in action. I think that's going to be the thing to do. So yeah, I'll probably do that next. And what that's going to allow me to do is actually have these fixtures where I can kind of expect some input and output, which is not something that I've currently handled with this project. So yeah, I wonder, did we figure out a way to hack files? I think maybe I'll do that in the next stream, is like write a test, push this a little farther by writing a test for it, because this is going to need its own fixtures, especially for stuff that like doesn't come across one-to-one from Shift like this. It needs its own testing because it's kind of gone its own direction. Some of these other things were like the faker methods and stuff where I just kind of copied the code over straight away. I don't know if I'm going to write a test for those, to be honest. But I think some of these where it's been kind of completely rebuilt and uses some local reflection, that's going to be a little bit interesting. Yeah, it's going to be kind of hard to test. I'm going to have to think about that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to think about that over the next week and go from there. So thanks everybody for joining live, who made it live. And for those that are watching the recording, I will try to do a better job posting on Twitter next week. I kind of relied on Layer streamers this week. So I'm going to go install these app updates, I guess, right now. So thanks everybody. See y'all later.